New York State Department of Health says that they've always recommended 6 feet and that there is the option for 3 feet if schools deem that it was necessary in order to educate their children. So we know that if we move kids from 6 feet to 3 feet, we are going to have massive quarantines. We've had 18 COVID positive cases in 2 weeks and 10 quarantines during that time. A lot of them were half of them were sports related for the quarantines. But we do know that all of these new things we're doing, like bringing sports back, et cetera, is not going to impact a child who is sitting in a classroom if we keep having these kids at 6 feet. So it's important to us, all of the studies are basically saying that these high school age children are pretty much just as capable of spreading and contracting COVID as adults. I mean, they are miniature adults. So keeping that 6 feet for us was really important. We don't want them bringing it home, and we don't want them being knocked out for 10 days at a time for all of these different quarantines. So the question might be, well, why didn't we do an extra 10% more of kids in September, right? Why are we doing this now? We've been watching to see which kids are fully remote. We've been watching to see what our attendance has been. And we knew that if we went with any more than half of our kids from the beginning of the school year, that we would have kids potentially in overflow rooms. And Chris can talk a little bit about that today. And at the time, we said, when COVID was raging through these areas, we said it's better for these kids to be at home and comfortable and learning remotely than to all be in an overflow room and have that increased density here in capacity. We really look to reduce the density to keep everybody safe. Now that we've been looking at attendance, we know that we may be in overflow room situations at the high school level if all of the kids who are permitted to come back now do come back with the increased 10%. I think once the schedule changes a little bit, you may see some kids who chose to stay home at this time come in because this is like a new novelty, right? You may see more different kids than you've seen normally. And I think kids are itching to come back to school. Our attendance has shown us, though, that we have gradually, a lot of the freshmen are coming on the days they're supposed to, pretty much a lot of the sophomores, and then it starts to peter off with the juniors and the seniors. I think on one of the days, right, Chris, we had like 40 seniors who weren't in physical attendance. They were attending remotely. So with those smaller numbers, we really think that we can try to do this 10% at this time, in case you were wondering why it wasn't something we just did from September. So although schools around us are doing the 3 feet and are bringing back all kids, I still do not think for this high school age group and middle school to high school age group that this is a decision that we're comfortable with for the health and safety of all your kids and you at home. And I also like the fact that if somebody is an athlete and we do have a quarantine situation, that student is not knocking out every child who's in class with that student who wants to come in and learn in person when they can. So we've been fortunate with our practices, and we've been following that. What does that mean it's going to look like in September? We could very well find ourselves back in school full time in September, depending on what's happening in June, July, and August. But I know that we are not going to be 3 feet apart when we come back in September either. I don't think we have ever been 3 feet apart, right, Chris? I think we've been more like 4.5 feet apart in class.
Yeah, I don't want three feet in a high school. It doesn't work.
It doesn't work, period. And I think that 3 foot marker was really put out there for some school districts that might have classes of 35 and 37, right? Where they really have to be 3 feet apart. But as Kim Lappel says, if you actually look at nose to nose, a 3 foot distance, you're practically sitting on a bench next to someone. Which is not something that we typically have done anyway. So we are looking forward to this. Chris Walsh and Kim Lappel, I appreciate all the work that you and your APs have done, Colleen and Kristen, in trying to jigsaw a way to get 10% more students in. So this took a lot of time on your part, Chris and Colleen and Kristen. I appreciate it. I think kids want to be in school, so this is a safe way.
Yeah, and Jen, just to piggyback off of one of the reasons why we're doing this now is that in the beginning of the year, we were really adamant about not overlapping our cohorts. And look, that's why we split them right down the middle, 8 through K, L through Z, and that there was no overlap in the building for the most part. And what we've learned through the course of this year is that we're now not having to quarantine as many students, so we're not wiping out multiple cohorts when these cases come up, because we have seen cases in the building, but we just don't have to do the quarantines because we are following the appropriate protocols. So now we're feeling more comfortable with being able to overlap the cohorts, and that's why we can move to breaking them up and having them be in the building at the same time. So Jen, I'm just going to jump into the plan. You want me to I'll go that way? All right. So important information. This is going to start on April 19th. So we thought that that was enough time for everybody who needs a, in grades 7 through 12 to take care of childcare, transportation issues. We know that everybody has built up a plan from the beginning of the year. And we know with the new cohorts, that might take a little bit of adjusting. We tried as best we could to only limit the possibility of being at home one day more than you would have been in the past. I think there was one cohort where that shifted 2 days. But for the most part, we tried to limit it as much as we could. And again, this is bringing us up from a capacity of 50% currently to 60%. So we're trying to get more out of what we have here. And then the cohorts are A through C, D through G, H through L, M through R, S through Z. And we did that as best we could to try to manage that each of the cohorts was as equal in size as possible. Now, even with that, there are going to be some days when we have the 3 largest cohorts in that we may have to look at having some of our students for certain periods go to overflow rooms. All right, so each of these cohorts now, if you look at what we have now, they're coming in 5 out of 10 days. With these new cohorts, kids are going to be coming in 6 out of 10 days. And depending on what we see out there, this will very easily allow us to jump up to 80%, which would have kids coming in 8 out of 10 days, or even finally 10 out of 10 days. We can do this easily through incremental shifts. And again, every kid is going to be able to at least see their friend in the other cohorts at one time or another in this model. We're not going to change these. We have no plan on changing these for the rest of the school year. And those kids who are already attending in person for whatever reason, 5 days a week, they can continue to do that. At this time, we're not able to, because of all of the management of it, we are not able to make any cohort exemptions. So we do want you to understand that this is going to allow more kids to see more of their friends. We know that there are some issues with work and transportation. If there are issues with siblings in the middle school that for whatever reason are on a different cohort at the middle school, please just reach out to me and we'll see if we can manage that, because I know it would be important for high school aged students to watch their siblings in the middle school possibly.
And Chris, it's important to say that the middle school schedule will replicate the high school schedule. So
exactly. Yeah.
Different.
Miss Lappel and I we spent a lot of good quality time together coming up with this. So again, we're going to maintain that 6-foot distance. So the idea, going back before the December break, we started to see less and less students the closer we got to break, because everybody was worried about getting that quarantine call. In this new model, we do not see any, we're not going back to that. It's going to be as it was recently, where as long as people are following the protocols, we don't have to have those large scale quarantines. Like I said, there will be a possibility of certain days and certain periods where students may have to utilize overflow spaces. So right now we have the 9th graders in Bobcat Hall in the band room, 10th grade going to the lower gym, 11th graders in the library and the lecture hall, and the 12th graders in the cafeteria. Now we had a building operations meeting this morning, and we were really focused on the issue of students going to that overflow room and making sure that we don't have one student who's going to the overflow room, 3 out of 5 periods that day, because for them, like Jen was saying, what different is that than being at home? There are a few differences, but we don't want it to be something where kids feel like they're coming in and they're in an overflow room. So we are going to increase the use of our QR codes so that anytime a student is checking into an overflow space, we are going to get that information on the back end, and then we're going to manage if we see a student whose name is popping up in an overflow space more than once in a day. And we're going to reach out to that student's teachers and say that this kid really needs to be in the room, going forward. So we're going to try to limit it at the most to one day, one period in their 3 days that they have to go to an overflow room. And we're going to really try to manage that on our end. I do want to say to all the parents, right, with the increase, there is a possibility that there will be a little bit more wait times during the drop-offs in the morning. And as we manage the kids coming in and we do our temperature checks, you might want to just give yourself a little bit extra time. And again, right, we don't believe that this new model is going to increase our quarantines at all. So I don't want to have that out there saying that this is going to now go send us back to where we were in November and December. And again, this is the new schedule. We don't anticipate that it's going to change. For the most part, all of the cohorts are getting just about an equal amount of time in person. So I think one of them has 27 in-person meetings, and then the lowest might have 25. So there's not much of a difference there. So leaving in the afternoons, again, that is something that we feel like we're in a good place in terms of getting people out of here. We feel like a lot of the families, they almost know, like, all right, I'm going to wait an extra 5 minutes and then come down the hill, or I'm going to get there a little bit extra early. So I know that people have developed a rhythm over the course of the year. And I just want you to be aware that that rhythm may shift just a little bit. So give yourself a little bit of extra time during dismissals as well.
Chris, and I don't know if you covered this, but is there a possibility that my child's going to go to school and be in the overflow room every single period or multiple periods?
Yeah, yes. No, there is not a chance that that's going to happen. So again, like the increased use of our QR codes, we're going to be managing that on the back end. We're going to make sure that if we see a student's name popping up in the overflow room multiple times, so more than once, that we're going to be reaching out to those teachers to work with them so that student is actually going to be in the physical space. So what our goal is limiting a student having to go to an overflow room one time, one period out of their 3-day rotation. That's the goal.
And my next question, I'm just pretending to be a parent right now. If my child does come for more than just the allocated time for academic needs, would they still come 5 days a week if their academic profile says that they need to be and they've been coming 5 days a week?
Absolutely, yes. They're going to continue to keep coming in, and they will be able to access their classes 5 days a week here. We are putting we did have a process for looking at those students and identifying students who may need to come back for 5 days a week. We are putting that on pause right now because our numbers are all built off of what we currently have. Well, I do feel like the students are really getting a little bit. In one of our lunch periods, we had 41 seniors, so which is half of the cohort. So that was basically maxed out in that period. which we really haven't seen since the beginning of September. We are seeing the number of students in the building increase, which I think is a really good sign.
Are
Good
Wednesdays
question.
staying with a shorter schedule?
Yes, at this time, we are not adjusting the schedule at all. And those Wednesdays will still have small group tutorials beginning at 1:10. So we're not going to be adjusting those schedules. We shouldn't do that until next year.
Hey,
Yes,
Chris,
I'll share that with you. Yes.
Reshow, but you also mailed that home Tuesday night, right?
Yes, that was blasted out as well. But I'm going to put it up here.
Go ahead and
Actually,
reshow.
you know what I'll do is I'll put the link in the chat box.
So just a quick note. I just want to compliment the parents on their children. Tim Kaltenecker and I were walking out of the high school the other day, back up to the district office, and it was during dismissal time. And every child outside was standing on one of the blue dots waiting to be picked up. And, it wasn't that somebody was out there asking them to do this. They're just knowing what they need to do the right thing for everyone around them. And it was pretty incredible to see that, right? It's always important to see what people are doing when no one's looking, and your kids are doing the right thing. So that they're making this possible for us. Thank you for everything you're doing on your end at home to support that. Chris, thank you for doing this additional principal's coffee, just in case there were any questions and to go over it for parents. And everybody knows that we're all accessible. So if you have any questions or concerns, just reach out to us. Chris, you did a great job. Thanks.
Thank you. And again, I've recorded this, so I'll blast this out to all parents as well. Have a great break, everybody.